Commissioners, welcome to the April 8th, 2026 meeting of the Clark County Charter Review Commission. Quick note, we do have representatives of CBTV in the room with us today. They'll be here for about a half hour taking video, no audio. If you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. Jake, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Adeguame.
Present.
Commissioner Donnelly.
Here.
Commissioner LeBrant.
Here.
Chair Erickson.
Here.
Commissioner Garber.
Here.
Commissioner Hamlin.
Here.
Commissioner Chrisley.
Here.
Commissioner Landisberg.
Here.
Commissioner Jay.
Here.
Commissioner Klein.
Here.
Commissioner Gasquet.
Here.
Commissioner Holmgren.
Here.
Commissioner Benton.
Here.
Vice Chair Haas.
Here.
Commissioner Silliman.
Here.
All present, Chair.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. We'll next seek to approve our agenda. There are a few edits that we'd like to make. First of all, item number 7, comments by Councilor Glenn Young. Councilor Young was delayed out of town and will not be able to address us today, but he will be scheduled for a future meeting. Item number 8, which currently reads Work Plan Subcommittee Report. That should instead say Committee Reports. And then under New Business, item 11, we have 3 second readings that will not be occurring today. That is 2624, 2628, and 2632. One of them has been voluntarily deferred by the sponsor. The other 2, the documents were not submitted in time for today's meeting and will be rescheduled to a future meeting. And then additionally, a second reading for 2631, we would like to put that first in the queue of the remaining 4. We've discussed that already with the sponsor of that second reading, and they're prepared to go first. So with those amendments, is there a motion to approve the agenda with these amendments?
LeBrant, so moved.
Seconded, Adeguame.
Okay. It's moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Are there any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the agenda is approved as amended. We will next then go to public comment. And I'll ask Jake to get ready to let us know who is prepared to give us public comment. First, I will make this statement. The Clark County Charter Review Commission welcomes and encourages public comment. Public comment provides an opportunity for members of the community to share input with the Charter Review Commission. Comment should focus on issues relevant to the Commission's responsibilities. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. The microphone will be automatically turned off once the time limit is reached. The Commission will listen to comments but will not engage in discussion during the public comment period. During public comment, speakers are asked to keep remarks respectful and focused on Commission business. Remarks concerning private activities or beliefs of others, individual county employees or elected officials, or matters unrelated to the work of the Commission fall outside the purpose of public comment. Disruptive, uncivil, or defamatory conduct will not be permitted. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this process. And with that, Jake, could you please let us know who is here ready to speak with us?
We have 1 signed up in the room, Chair. Chuck Green.
Thank you. Understand you need to hold this up really close. Can you hear me? Can I use yours? Is this better? Yay. Okay. Good evening, Charter Review Commissioners. I'm Chuck Green. I'm former Charter Review Commission co-chair from the 2021 Commission. and I'm a resident of Councilor District 5. So I'm here presenting to you my thoughts from those perspectives. I did make sure there were copies of my comments handed out because I'm going to respect the time constraints and probably summarize what I have in this. So here's some of my thoughts and observations. I apologize, I've not listened to the last couple of meetings. And I do understand there's one correction to something I said in here, which I'll cover in a minute. So you probably are not surprised to please limit the number of amendments on the ballot. We had the same discussion in 2021. I went and looked at the things called undervotes, where people actually did turn in ballots in 2021, but didn't vote on the amendment measures. And there were between 6 and 10%, which is a little above average for that type of measure. Voters will tune out, especially 2021 was not a midterm election. This year is a midterm election, so there'll be a lot of other stuff on the ballot. Also, want to ask you to avoid micromanaging the county budget. I've seen a lot of discussion about public safety, limiting like a supermajority, paramount, the use of the term paramount in there. My wife and I live in unincorporated Clark County, and less than 7% of our property taxes go to the Clark County General Fund. So that's how little the Clark County Council has an effect on the budget. The more you micromanage it, the more constrained that will be when you start looking at what the county council is able to or not able to do. What I would suggest is something that other counties do. They have a budget message that goes out with the county executive. That might be something to propose an amendment for. Also, create an independent office of ombudsman. Snohomish County uses something like that as a public advocate. Maybe expand that to be a charter go-to person rather than it being me, which I've been the last few years. But the thing I want to cover is the land supply and construction cost analysis. I understand Whatcom County does have such a measure. It's really not consistent with the intent of the charter. Ask that you no longer consider that, as the two amendments proposals on no tolls and no light rail. Clark County does not have any authority over establishing toll roads. That's the legislature. Tolls are established by the Washington State Transportation Commission. CTRAN controls the public transportation. So ask that you consider removing or not forwarding, though, continuing with those measures. With that, my time is up. I want to thank you for your time and what you're doing. I've been here. It's a tough job, and I really appreciate what you're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jake, do we have anyone else?
I did see a couple hands signed up online, Chair. Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute. Please do so. State your name for the record and proceed with your comment.
My name's Bradley Branham, and I hope everybody's well. I must acknowledge that the exchange of letters published in the Columbian between Editor Emeritus Brown and Commissioner Donnelly represents an engaging example of traditional public discourse. It appears evident that Mr. Brown, like many observers of the Charter Review Commission, relies heavily on the official meeting minutes in forming his conclusions, including the controversy surrounding 2603. I find it difficult to characterize the Commission's wonky debates as cage matches. In respect, I concur with Commissioner Donnelly's description of the Commission as collegial. Further, if Commissioner Donnelly employs the term philosophy as a proxy for opinion, where such opinions are informed by ideology derived from political philosophy, I agree with her statement regarding diversity. That said, given the presence of two dominant partisan political parties in Clark County, group ideological opinions tend to simply bifurcate. Mr. Brown's cage match hypothesis would suggest that more than 6 of the 10 second reading votes would fall strictly along ideological lines, producing outcomes such as 870 or 780. Examination of the Commission's voting patterns demonstrates that only 3 second reading votes had the 870 pattern. One of the three, 2620, exhibited ideological diversity in both voting and study committee representation. By contrast, 2608 and 2612 divided strictly along partisan lines and lacked representation from the minority ideology in the study groups. I was recently reminded that study committee membership is voluntary, which implies that there is no structural bias imposed by the majority ideology. That's an important fact that Commissioner Donnelly could point out to Editor Emeritus Brown. As to 2608, in my view, this amendment, much like 2612, seeks to regulate policy within a foundational structure document such as the county charter. Why only track taxation for the supermajority? The presentation in support of the amendment relied heavily on sales rhetoric and was ultimately unconvincing, and that of the Clark County. Furthermore, the comparison between the scope and authority of the United States Senate to that of the Clark County Council introduced a false equivalency that severely undermined the argument. Hopefully, the study group will follow Commissioner Adegwembe's advice, examine Washington taxation cases that were affected by the supermajority levy requirements, battleground schools, Bellingham schools, debt crises. Also examine the public record surrounding the failure of the Whatcom County proposed amendment with the very same supermajority requirement in mind. I feel that this proposed amendment represents a murky and present danger to Clark County. Thank you for your work. That's all.
Thank you. Jake, do we have anyone else?
One more chair. Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute. Please do so. State your name for the record and proceed with your comment. Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. Margaret Tweet with Clark County, and I sent comments in support of the amendment prohibiting county government from interfering with initiatives and charter amendments. It was difficult working on a committee that was not in favor of an amendment, and our committee was not notified timely about our membership, and that put us at a disadvantage right from the outset. So I hope this time around that all of the committees are informed timely and at the same time completely, whether they're for or against. And we really struggled with the statements. And so I hope that the statements could be more fair. To me, they seem like they favored the amendments, and the committees had very little input on that. We weren't successful in getting clearer language. And I think what the residents appreciate is getting the most information they can to summarize it. Also, the way it is in the voters pamphlet is confusing. The full language where you really know what's going on is way at the back of the voters pamphlet, and it's not right next to the measures. So I don't know if that could be considered. And that's that. And then I do support performance audits. I like what Whatcom County came up with, and I believe that Clark County residents would be favorable to, that open transparency. Where is the money going, and are the programs being offered working as intended? I also am a supporter of no tolls and no light rail. The $17 billion IBR project is the largest transportation project in Southwest Washington in decades, and we will be saddled with the debt from it for many decades, well, from here on out. And so I believe that the residents have not been heard on light rail. There has been no vote on light rail, and yet it's going forward as if the voters had already approved it, which they have not. And the idea is to put light rail in. Light rail has been put in the project in spite of prior votes and without getting a current vote. So I strongly support a vote on light rail by the people. which is actually a policy in Clark County, according to their website. So please consider spending time on that issue. Is something a lot of residents are concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you. Appreciate the public's interest in the commission's work and for their time to provide comment. Commissioners, we'll next move on to approval of our minutes. You may recall in our last meeting, we tabled the approval of our March 25th minutes over discussion regarding how votes on second readings would be recorded. After discussion with the support staff, it was decided that the most efficient approach would be to include the actual roll call documents that are maintained during our meetings as an attachment to our minutes. And the version of the March 25th minutes that are now before you include reproductions of those roll call logs. And would suggest that that meets what this body had intended to accomplish by asking for those votes to be documented. With that, is there a motion to approve the March 25th, 2026 minutes as amended?
Chair, move to approve minutes as amended. Adegwame.
Commissioner Gasquet seconds.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Adegwame and seconded by Commissioner Gasquet. Are there any opposed? Okay, seeing none, then the March 25th minutes are approved as amended. We'll next move to seek approval of our March 31st, 2026 minutes. Are there any proposed revisions to the March 31st minutes?
Chair, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second, Benton.
Fine.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Klein, seconded by Commissioner Benton to approve the March 31st, 2026 minutes in their current form. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, then they are approved. Thank you. We'll next move on to executive committee reports. We'll start first with Commissioner Garber, please.
I don't have anything to add at this time.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Haas, please.
I have two things we're working on. Number one, I reached out to the finance office to figure out the process to get them the amendments to do the analysis on them. And the most I got back was that we should email them to Mitchell Kelly. He understands, at least in their return, they understand that our short turnaround and tight timelines, they're going to work on them the best they can. So if you're going to send it to have it out and have the analysis done, Mitchell Kelly, and it will be in your commission email. The other one is we have a draft written up that's with legal right now. They're looking over it to put out for a Scribner, somebody to help us write the language and to send it out to the 4 different groups that were identified, MRC, the Bar, thank you, that's what the Bar Association, and there's 2 more in there. So as soon as we get that back from legal, which I'm sure will be fairly soon, we'll be putting the final touches on that and having that go out through the purchasing folks.
Thank you. I'll follow up on the comment about CBTV's presence. CBTV reached out and asked to do a follow-up story on the Charter Review Commission. So the members of the executive committee are going to participate in the interview in a couple of weeks. And the video that's being recorded today will be interwoven into the interview. I also will follow up on something that Commissioner Vice Chair Haas mentioned. I happened to run into Mitchell Kelly today at another event, and he is going to share the initial financial assessment of one of our initial amendments to go over the form and presentation of how that information will be relayed. It'll be a test case. We'll agree on the format. And then once that's settled, then that will become a template for how all amendments will be treated. So there's uniformity in the reporting. I don't have anything else. We'll next move on to committee reports. First with public outreach, Commissioner Holmgren.
Over here today. Sorry. Okay. So we had a meeting on Friday. Just a few notes. We were able to have a conversation about the website. And so the way we're going to be going about there will be some changes to the way the forms are listed on the website, with ones that are being currently reviewed for 2026 will be at the top, ones that have been withdrawn at the bottom, and then ones for 2027 in the middle-ish area. The main thing, though, was discussion of the feedback form. We decided that we would focus on the current proposals for 2026 as the feedback form, which would be a request for the person's name, similar to the public comment that you might see on other legislative proposals. So name, zip code, what item they want to speak on, and then if they're in favor, oppose it, or neutral, and then some opportunity to provide text. Once that's on the website, we will start creating some sort of summary of those items that will happen at these meetings. In addition, there's been discussion about creating a newsletter so people can sign up on the website to get regular updates from us. Commissioner Jay has created a draft of that for us, and we'll bring, once we've approved a template, we'll bring it to this group for everyone else to take a look at it and provide feedback. Finally, I sent out an email that requested all of you to fill out a poll. For those of you who have done so already, thank you. We're just looking for possible dates for town halls, hoping to do those, one for each district. We are also seeking out locations. If you haven't filled out the poll yet, please do so if you can. And if you have locations that you want or you think we should be hosting a town hall at in your district, let me know. We're in the process of reaching out to different locations, trying to find dates that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Public Outreach Committee? Okay, thank you for that update. Thank you for the work of the committee members. We'll next move on to ask for a brief update from the study committees. For those amendments that have passed second reading are now in committee. We'll start in chronological order. First with 2601, clarifying nonpartisan office elections. Commissioner Garber, could you please give us an update?
Thank you. Yes, we did meet, and the detailed, I forget what it's called, the detailed form that is supposed to go to the prosecuting attorney has been sent, along with the same document to audit services so they can give me a financial impact. So we're just waiting to hear from them.
Thank you. We'll next go to Committee on 2607, Recording Land Supply and Construction Cost Analysis. Commissioner Jay, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we submitted the policy detail form to the county on Tuesday. We've held our subcommittee meeting last week, and we have heard responses both in terms of from questions from us from the Clark County Community Development as well as the Whatcom County Planning Department, and they did provide kind of conflicting viewpoints. Clark County anticipated that they'd have to hire upwards of 2 additional planners in order to implement the amendment, and that there would be delays, while Whatcom County stated that it would simply add more staff time to produce the analysis, but did not state that they needed to hire additional staff, though the question was posed, and that there had been no delays to any development according to the planner that I spoke to. Next up, I do plan to speak to members of our engineering advisory board here in Clark County to hear their feedback as well and to see how they are involved in the processes further.
Thank you. Moving on, 2608, requiring supermajority council for approval for county taxes. That's also Commissioner Jay, please.
Thank you again, Chair. This one I have less to report on. I have not yet scheduled a meeting. I intend to reach out to my fellow commissioners on the subcommittee to meet potentially on Monday evening, and I plan to write the policy detail this weekend so I can submit on time for next Wednesday.
Thank you. Move on to proposal 26-10, revised budget transparency and process. Commissioner Silliman, please.
We had a committee meeting and also just submitted the
form to the prosecuting attorney's office and to the executive committee this morning or yesterday, one or the other. So in process and moving forward.
Thank you. Move on to Amendment Proposal 2612, prioritizing public safety. Also, Commissioner Silman, please.
We've had a meeting on that and our initial discussions have started. We have an initial form to send the prosecuting office, but we haven't sent that yet. So.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Amendment Proposal 2615, ethics. Commissioner Gasquet, please.
We met on Monday and our policy detail form has been submitted.
Thank you. Submitted to their prosecuting attorney's office or financial services or both?
Just prosecuting attorney's office now. I have a bunch of questions for financial service, so I'll be reaching out to them later.
Thank you. Next, move to Amendment Proposal 2620, limitations on the consecutive terms for county council members. I am the chair. I can report that initial draft of the detailed policy form has been completed. It's being circulated amongst the committee members, reviewing and commenting upon it via email, and we are poised to schedule a meeting to discuss it further. Okay, moving on. Amendment Proposal 2623, revised council powers regarding boards and commissions. Commissioner Adegweme, please.
Thank you, Chair. As of now, I engaged in one conversation with the staff member who currently does that work, which was enlightening, and will inform how we choose to move forward with the policy detail form. I've not yet scheduled that meeting with the subcommittee, as we're a small subcommittee, so I'm relying on getting that scheduled this week. We seek to then submit the policy form in the subsequent week.
Thank you. Next, move on to Amendment Proposal 2626, Clark County's requirement to support public safety. Commissioner Donnelly, please.
Yes, several days ago, we had the first meeting of our committee, and we have now filed with the prosecutor's office our detailed form and with Mitchell Kelly, our financial request. And we are still having very productive discussions with Commissioner Silliman's group and committee with regard to an eventual melding of this amendment with 2612.
Thank you. So on that topic, I understand that 2612 and 2026 have not yet merged, that the decision has been made to advance both of them in the committee with the prospect of merging them at a later time. Commissioner Silliman, can you confirm if I'm accurately describing that? And then Commissioner Donnelly will ask you to do the same.
That's accurate.
Yes, it's accurate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I believe that covers all of the amendments that have entered into committee study. A friendly reminder to those. Commissioner Landsberg.
I have a quick question. When the documents are submitted to the county prosecutor's office, in what way will it come back? Yay, nay, you can't, this is good.
Commissioner Landsberg, that is an excellent question, and we will be digging into that today. So
Great.
thank you for that question. That's been a topic of discussion recently. So thank you. We will be digging into that. So back to my earlier comment. Friendly reminder to those committees who were formed at our last meeting on Tuesday, March 31st. That was a Tuesday. We normally meet on Wednesday, so the 2 weeks is going to be coming up next Tuesday. So if you are thinking of the submission date being Wednesday, a friendly reminder, it is in fact the day before. Okay, we will now move on to comments by support staff. And we're going to proceed a little bit differently than we have in the past. We're grateful to have Katie here with us today. She's got some important information to share with us. There's two primary topics that we want to go over. I'm going to frame the issue and then we'll let Katie speak. The first has to do with some discussion that came up last week regarding how this body would behave or function should a second reading vote be unanimous. You may recall that a couple of weeks ago, we had a discussion about that topic. Later in our last meeting, we heard an opinion that seemed to be different, in fact, opposite. And so there was a little bit of uncertainty and confusion about that. We sought to seek some clarification on that. And what came of that discussion is that the initial opinion that we received, that if we were to vote unanimously in support of a second reading, then that would require this body to be the committee, and committee work would happen in our general meeting. And that is embedded into our study committee protocol document, which we reviewed and approved. So the explanation, in my description of the explanation for that, is that we benefit from having multiple representatives from the prosecuting attorney's office. They provide us opinions, and professional opinions are not always uniform, and they can be subject to personal interpretation, and that's what we experienced. So after some discussion, it was agreed upon that the initial opinion that we received, which came from Katie, is the opinion that we will rely upon. So I'll pause there and ask Katie if you can either confirm or clarify what I've just shared, please.
Thank you, Chair. So under OPMA, it is a fact-based analysis. And so with that, the case law within OPMA is very reliant on the circumstances, the intent, the acts, the words surrounding when something goes from being under the exemption, when it's the minority, a sub-body meeting, and is generally exempt, and into what we can call de facto land. And so because of that, I will always give you very conservative advice when it comes to OPMA. And where my colleague saw that he had a different interpretation based on his fact analysis, that doesn't mean he's wrong or I'm wrong. We had a difference of opinion, but mine is the more cautious advice. And so with that, and through speaking with the executive board, it is still the recommendation to go with the more cautious advice of being a unanimous vote gets you on a slippery slope to de facto land, and to say it in kind of general terms. But I will also remind this body that because it's fact determinative, if people are undervoting for the purposes of avoiding OPMA, under my recommendation, you are still on a slippery slope, and you could still be negating the purposes of OPMA, which is transparency and allowing the public to participate. So I'll just tell you that to keep that in mind, that, the 15 is an example of where you're slippery sloping into de facto land. But that is an interpretation that I have for this body. And if other factors arise, that can change. And I will also warn that if you want a black and white rule on this, which doesn't exist in the law, then all your meetings can be under OPMA. So that is, again, a caution to let's not circumvent the law, and let's do this in good faith.
Thank you. I believe the intent is that we are operating in good faith. One quick question. Can you clarify, is an abstention, how does that get considered when looking at unanimous votes? Is it unanimous votes of those who voted, or does an abstention prevent a unanimous vote?
That is a good question. And generally speaking, the reason why I had recommended that a unanimous vote is a slippery slope into de facto land is because it is per se on behalf of the whole body, hence de facto. If someone is abstaining, then by reason, it would then not be on behalf of the whole. But again, the facts surrounding a vote like that would have to be the determinative analysis.
So for example, if there are 13 aye votes and 2 abstentions, is that considered unanimous in the context of this discussion?
I would not consider that but again, there is no law that says that case gets you out of OPMA. And so again, I would, I'm just hesitant to be like, yes or no, because it's not as straightforward as that. And it is determinative on perhaps even what the reason were for the abstentions, but I would generally say no.
Okay, thank you. So I would, in my own summary, the current version of the study committee protocol document reflects the current and more conservative opinion that we'll be relying upon. Next topic pertains to the manner in which we engage the prosecuting attorney's office for initial opinions on the legality or legal implications of our proposed amendments. Referring back to our committee protocol document, and we've referenced it here in this meeting, we require each committee to complete a detailed policy report and then to submit that to the prosecuting attorney's office for review. That document represents the then current and most evolved version of the amendment at that time, submitted for review and legal comment. Several of those have since been submitted, and it's brought to light the nature, type, and description of the information that the prosecuting attorney's office needs in order to be able to respond back to us with reliable information. So with that preface, I'd like to invite Katie to describe to us in a little bit more detail what kind of information their office needs on that form so that they can respond back with information for use by the committee.
Thank you, Chair. So generally speaking, for any of our clients who are the departments here at the county, legal is the last stop before it goes back to council or back to Kathleen. And so that means that any affected departments have been consulted with, have reviewed the proposed policy or project. Then budget has also been consulted with to review any budget implications. Risk has also been consulted with for insurance purposes. And then the PA's office is the last stop. That's in general. I do recognize that you all want a little bit of, preliminary assessment. However, some may be ripe, as we say in the law, for review, and some are not. And I have to have a legal question in order to answer it. And so if your proposal is still predominantly still under policy, or you're still formulating the policy, it would be redundant or even premature for me to review it now if the full policy implications have not been thought through and you're not sure exactly where you're going to land. Or I may send back more pieces of guidelines, materials, or other departments to still consult with if I feel like there's still more policy to be worked through. So some are much more clear cut. for example, Kathy, the proposal that you sent to me regarding the elections, that is an example of there is a pretty clear-cut legal question because can you hold these elections during the general? And the answer is legally yes. So it's very clear-cut. And I will give you more feedback than just yes. But there are others that they are still very policy heavy and there's not a clear legal question yet. And so I will send that back. Commissioner Donnelly's, yours that came through, they're really, again, with that, for the CCSO funding, there is no question. We can fund hiring sheriffs. We do it every day. So there's not like a real legal question there, but I did give her some construction back on the form of it, which your Scrivener will also assist with. But I did give some recommendations back to Commissioner on, this part can't really be included in the charter or code. It wouldn't be appropriate, but these sections would be. So I'd like to give you, again, more black and white, but that's not how the law works. It's a little bit more example based, and I will make that determination based on each one that comes through.
Commissioner Landsberg, please.
So let's assume it's pretty simple. It comes to you and it simply cannot be in the charter. Will you then say, no, it can't be on the ballot, or can it still be on the ballot?
I approve as to form. So I am approving as to the legality of the issue, that would be taking the power out of your hands and putting it solely in mine, which I think is inappropriate. And so mine would be to say, this is the end result. If you pursue this, this is not allowed. And you all have to make that determination. Or I could say it would actually be a very limited scope under current law. And again, you all would have to make that determination. But the power is not in my hands. I wasn't elected to do the work. You all were. And so it's a balancing act for me to stay in my lane, so to speak, with regard to approving as to form, the legality of it, not recommending what it should be.
I'll come back to you, Commissioner Landsberg. I'll add one comment just on that topic. So keep in mind that the process of evolving these amendments is a continuum, and that these detailed policy forms are being prepared at a point in time in that process, and that the committees are still formed, working on and evolving the amendments. And so the time at which the form comes to the prosecuting attorney's office and whatever opinions are based on the information on the form represents a response to the then current status of the amendment. So I'm not, it may be, but more likely it's not going to be at a point where yes or no, legal, not legal, but based on where the amendment is at that time, these are concerns, and it comes back to the committee for consideration and perhaps remedy so that any legal concerns can be resolved.
Right. But what we do not do is we do not weigh in on policy. So we don't do that for any of our clients. We review the legal aspects, but it is not my lane, so to speak, to point out policy issues. I'm there to point out legal ones.
And I'll come to you in just a second, Commissioner Landsberg. Just to be clear, though, given the nature of where the amendment is in this process and the timing at which these forms are being completed and submitted, knowing that the committees are still active and working, and what you receive is the then best current information, it would be premature perhaps for any final opinion because the amendment is still in process. And so the opinions that you do give would be, if there are any concerns, it's flagged to the committee for potential remedy. And,
Yes.
and that should they be addressed properly, or at least to your satisfaction, then that's good. And it will come back again for another opportunity for your office to apply on that.
Right. But I would like you all to be respectful too of our limited amount of time for review. And that, like I said, generally speaking, we are the last stop on the process for all clients when we review things. And so I am affording early preliminary review right now, but it also could be, I'm kicking this back. It's not ripe. It's not ready. It's premature, and encourage different avenues for people to go down for the study groups and also for drafting. There's still a lot of work to do. So that might be your answer, your preliminary answer, because I'm not seeing a definitive legal question being proposed yet. It's still in policy land.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Landsberg, please.
Okay, so assuming you kick something back and the whole body or majority of the body that's required to put it on the ballot decides to put it on the ballot anyway, and the ballot measure pass, is there a time where you still, with your office, would weigh in that this isn't legal?
We won't sign the form. I won't sign it. When it says approved as to form and my name is underneath, or Amber Smith, our new chief deputy, we won't sign it. But it is also not we will say this is limited in scope, or it is not legal, or whatever our legal recommendation is, but it is up to you all. And so, but if there is something blatantly unconstitutional or whatnot, then, and this has never happened, I have the choice. It's my bar number. I don't sign it.
Yeah, that topic is actually addressed already in the committee protocol, that if the committee is unable to remedy any concerns that come back from the prosecuting attorney's office, yet if somehow this body still chooses to advance something to the ballot, then it does say in that document that the prosecuting attorney's office would decline to approve the form.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Jay, please.
Thank you, Chair. This does make me wish that perhaps we reschedule then the timing of when these policy detail forms are even submitted. It also makes me wonder the entire title of a policy detail form, given that the PA's office doesn't review policy. And so I don't want to feel like I'm wasting the PA's office's time just by submitting a form that I'm required to submit, is kind of where my main concerns are.
It's well taken. Part of this discussion is to have some dialogue around this, and also to solicit feedback from the prosecuting attorney's office as to how this process can be improved. So we're 1 week or so into this, so we are working out a few kinks, admittedly. Commissioner LeBrant.
In terms of something being approved as to form, are there? I'm guessing there's some sort of like baseline legal questions that, even if they're not specifically called out in that form, that you're looking at, like whether or not it falls under the purview of the charter, whether or not it's permissible under state law. Are there other things, other components of that you can share as far as just kind of general, what that general?
Well, it doesn't happen very often. We don't get a lot of things that are just completely illegal that come through our office. But in regards to the proposed amendments, what I can say is that most of them are still most of them have not ripened to legal review yet. And that they still need policy work, research, consulting with the affected departments. And I would, it just has never happened either that we have had to deal with a charter amendment or proposed one. It still has to be voted on here, has to put into a resolution form. with all the whereas statements, and then you have to have the, showing how you're actually changing code or the charter. We still have a long ways to go, so I think it's even premature for me to kind of weigh in on that. But again, the closest I can give you is that I may very much limit the scope of what this proposed amendment actually can do is very limited. I haven't seen anything outright that is completely barred for illegal. Like there are some that I've seen that ultimately are going to be very, 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 very narrow for what you as the charter can actually do within the scope of the powers of the county. But so I get if that answers enough for right now on that without having a specific example.
Commissioner Adequame, please.
Thank you, Chair. I know that we're still kind of making it up as we go along and how we work through these proposals, but I do think based on this conversation today, it's a little early to be sending things to the PA's office, and maybe we should consider moving where that is in the work plan that we have designed.
That's well taken. So Katie has indicated that of the forms that you've received, one was ripe. I think that's the term you were using.
Yeah, Kathy's.
So I guess there are some examples, at least one example where it wasn't premature, but then I think the majority that you've received, you're saying aren't quite ready. So as we give some consideration to how we may retool this, we do have a schedule. Can you give us some general guidance based on what you have received as to how this process might be improved so that we can pivot if necessary and start to present you with information that will allow you to give us meaningful feedback?
Sure. So Michelle and I spoke after today's meeting, and there are examples of the past proposed resolutions and how those were formatted. There's also general state guidelines on how code and legislative text should be formatted. And I believe she was planning on sending that out soon to you all. And so we do have some examples for you all to see. And there's also a proper way to change the text and have it all encompassed within what will ultimately be the resolution. You're not at the drafting stage yet, but I would say like looking at those as guides for where you should be steering and where you should be going, even if it's not quite there yet. I don't want to wait until the end. I'm not telling you that. I want to review them before we get to resolution and the auditor's office and Amber's review. So I am open to that, but there's just some don't have legal questions yet, or they are legal because we already do it, but it's policy, and it might always stay in policy. And again, I approve it to form because it will be, it's, like the sheriff, we hire sheriffs, we can hire sheriffs, that's fine. As a very general example. So there's not really much for me to do because again, I can't tell Commissioner Donnelly, oh, I can say, well, you had a will here and I think you meant shall, and that should go in, and you had this as a mechanism, and what would be proper is for it to be more generally put in there. But I'm also not going to tell you that this is a good policy, this is a bad policy. That is not my lane. So I am amenable to it being, and I do agree that it should be later on. It also is a bit organic as they come about because, like, for example, Kathy's was ready. it was pretty straightforward. It's already something done by law. And so hers was, pretty ready to go. And it's just more of the drafting process. Following that example would be a good thing. But Michelle should be sending out some documents for you all to use as guidelines for that as well.
Okay. Thank you. It sounds like maybe the work plan subcommittee may need to get together and retool slightly the process. I would maybe summarize what we're after as well, or add to the discussion that looking ahead, what we're looking for right now is what would prevent you from being able to sign the form at the end. So if there are red flags that you're seeing right now that would not allow you to do that, given the concepts that are being presented, hearing that early, even if some of the language isn't fully developed, would be beneficial. But we'll get our work plan subcommittee reconvened, and we'll maybe reach out to you offline as well and see if we can't refine that process a little bit more. We do value your input. We see you as a partner in this process, and we do want to have the benefit of your input along the way.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, are there any other questions on this topic before we move on? Commissioner Holmgren.
I think given this discussion, there should probably be some sort of clarity on those committees that are currently working, what their process should be regarding the 2-week deadline.
Agreed. Commissioner Selman, please.
If I could just clarify by asking the chair, I just want to confirm that when we set up this process, I thought it was supposed to be an initial contact with legal. I just want to make sure that this is the right way we're going. This is supposed to be an initial contact, kind of a preview of what we're proposing, and an opportunity for them to red flag anything that's obviously incorrect, not allowed, illegal. But when we get to after the committee reports, and if those are approved, aren't we going to a drafting committee, and wouldn't at that time they be reviewed as to form and be put into a proper ordinance to be approved? And wouldn't it be given a final approval by the PA's office at that point? Wasn't that the intent of our process originally?
Yes, I would say in general that was the intent. I don't think we are saying something different, but I think what I'm hearing is that we need to be a little bit more precise in what we give to the PA's office to allow for that initial contact. Would that be a good summary, Katie?
Yeah, and your final approval is actually going to be Amber Smith's when she does it as the final approval to us to form, where it's final, is when it's in the resolution form and she signs the bottom of it as independent. So I just want to be clear that mine will be a review, but I'm not signing anything first. It will be Amber's signature on the bottom of it, and she will be reviewing this independent of me sitting in all the meetings and reviewing everything. So it's essentially a second opinion, for the legality of the proposed amendments and the resolutions.
I do think that was an accurate summary of what the initial contact with you or your office would be like. So I think offline, we'll try to maybe better define what it is, what kind of information you need from us in order to allow for a meaningful first contact.
If I could just add, since we started the presentations 2 weeks ago and the deadline today is for the presentations that were given 2 weeks ago, are those going to be extended for the ones for us to revise?
Yeah, those are good questions. The work plan subcommittee's got some work to do, sounds like. So we'll have to come back and as soon as there's some resolution on that to provide some clarity. I would suggest that the committees continue to move forward in good faith, and we'll come back with some additional guidance. Commissioner Adeguame and then Commissioner LeBrant.
Chair, doesn't that just create kind of extra work for everyone if we're saying let's continue and move forward, even though we're talking about modifying what the ask is in the first place? Why would we do that?
Well, not necessarily. It depends on what the committees think are appropriate for them. I can speak for 2620. For example, there's some work that we need to do. It's not contingent upon this discussion. I think Commissioner Jay identified some tasks that would be appropriate independent of this discussion. So I think it's up to the committee to decide what they think they need to do to complete their work. I think what we're talking about is the timing of when this form will be submitted and then what kind of information goes on that form.
Would you entertain a motion to extend that deadline for the proposals that have already happened, seeing as how we're potentially going to have the work plan subcommittee moving that point in the process, so that we'll be even sending these forms to the PA's office?
You're asking if there's the appropriateness of a motion to suspend or extend the deadlines?
Yes.
Well, I think based on this discussion, there's general agreement that that's going to be happening independent of a motion. We certainly could have one, but I'm taking this discussion to mean that the work plan subcommittee needs to come together, review this topic specifically, and then come back to this body. And in the meantime, we wouldn't consider any deadlines to have been missed. Does that satisfy what you're after?
If it works for the commission, it works for me.
Okay, we'll come back and ask more formally about that. Commissioner LeBrant?
I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioners, given this discussion, is there any objection to temporarily suspending the deadlines associated with submission of these detailed policy forms so that the work plan subcommittee can revisit this topic and come back? Okay. So I think then that would be consistent with what you're proposing. So Commissioner Ottergren, if you want to formalize that with a motion, that would be fine.
So moved.
Okay.
Commissioner LeBrant, second.
Okay. And I didn't see any objections, but I'll ask again, just to be clear, any objections to that? Okay. Seeing none, then we will consider a suspension of submissions for the detailed policy forms until the work plan subcommittee comes back with additional guidance around these topics. Okay, thank you, commissioners. All right, we're still in comments by support staff. We'll wrap this up and then we'll move for a break. Kathleen, are you able to participate? Do you have anything that you'd like to share with us?
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Okay, can you speak a little bit on the discussions we've been having about Teams and getting Teams licenses to members of the commission, please?
Yes, so currently the executive team has WebEx access through the summer, and that we're going to be giving the subcommittee chairs, I believe, Teams access so that they can start their own Teams meetings. IT is already working on that right now, and then I will be, because I don't have budget for this, so I'm going to be going back to council just to get some additional funding from them. But in the interim, I will be paying for this out of the county manager council budget. So I don't think I have an estimated timeline right now, but it is on the top priority to get those Teams meet or access, and we'll communicate that out as soon as we have that set up for you.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, please.
Hello, everybody. Actually, I think that everything was very well presented already so far. Everything was very well spoken. I am sending out, as of now, the documents that Katie and I had spoke about, so you have something to compare to, as well as a document that's kind of provided by the state as a step 1, 2, 3, 4 on how the proposed amendments should be looking before they go to the PA's office. So I am actually typing that up and sending that out now, and I'll be back next week. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Jake, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Only that if everything goes well, this will be the last meeting I'm in this room for a little while, unless Michelle decides to take some time off. So it's been lovely being here. Goodbye.
Thank you, Jake.
I'll make one last comment before we ask for a break. So just a friendly reminder that when amendment committees, study committees are formed, just keep in mind OPMA requirements and keep the discussions focused on that amendment. There's a lot of overlap. There's multiple committees, I should say, with overlap in membership. So to avoid the creation of a serial meeting when you are convening a meeting on a specific amendment. Let's keep the discussions specific to that amendment. Okay, with that, commissioners, is there a motion to take a brief break?
So move, Klein.
Commissioner Klein, Commissioner. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, then we will take a quick break. We'll come back at 6:11, please. Commissioners, welcome back. If you please find your chairs. Our first item of new business is drafting committee. Our approved work plan indicates that today we would be forming the drafting committee. Notwithstanding the discussion that we just had, that there may be some revision to that, we still would like to have a discussion and form the drafting committee. And for clarity, the drafting committee is subset of this body that would work to put together the final verbiage around each of the amendments that is spelled out in more detail in our work plan. So what we'd like to do today is talk a little bit about the responsibilities on that committee, and then seek the membership of that committee, and then vote to form that committee. So one important distinction or detail to bring up, that if you are interested in serving on that committee, you should understand that the commitment is to work on all of the amendments, that you're not coming in and out of the committee to only work on a few, that whether you are in support of an amendment or not, if you are on the committee, you are working on all the amendments that come before the drafting committee. And there isn't going to be a rotation, that only people who are in favor of a certain amendment work on that. We want consistency. We want to share the workload. And so we can have up to 7 members. But if you do make yourself available to be on the drafting committee, please understand that that's the expectation. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Commissioner Garber, please.
I just wanted to add that part of the drafting committee, there would be no policy evolution in the drafting committee. It's simply to draft language, not shaping politics.
Correct. That policy evolution is what should be happening in the committees. So if there are no questions or discussion, then we'll ask for people who are interested in serving on that. Oh, you have a question? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holmgren.
Sorry. My question is, I think maybe if you're interested in joining, how much of this is going to be copy editing? How much are we expecting the study committees to have already produced prior to going to the drafting committee?
I think the best way to answer that would be to refer back to what Commissioner Garber said, that the drafting committee would not be tasked with policy evolution. I think the way in which our work plan is put together currently, and the study committee protocol document indicates that it should come out of that effort ready to go into drafting. So while I can't give you a precise quantification of the effort, it's going to be around words, not policy development. And if you find that that's necessary, then the committee hasn't really advanced the amendment to the point that it's ready for the drafting committee. Commissioner Alarguame, please.
Thank you, Chair. So if I'm hearing you correctly, to follow up on Commissioner Holmgren's point, the proposed amendment needs to go to the drafting committee ready to be translated to the verbiage, which will come to the intent of the policy, right? Which will achieve the intent of the policy. So the intent needs to be clear. It needs to have gone through whatever steps need to be in its final form, which then can be easily translated to here's the language which achieves the policy. Is that fair to say?
That would be a good summary, and the committee would be advised also to actually take a first pass at submitting an initial draft to the drafting committee so that it's a running start. I see a hand over here. Commissioner Klein, please.
Just processing in my mind the drafting committee working in concert or parallel with the proposed scrivener that will be hired. Tell me how that will work, please.
Yeah, thank you. There's a little bit of work to work out some of those details because we don't yet have the service provider identified, and we are actually working on what their scope of services would be. But it would be a partnership. The drafting committee would be taking the lead, and currently envision that these scrivener services would then be a review of what the drafting committee has initiated. Yeah, some polishing, some refinement, some double checking, things of that nature, that the real heavy lifting still stays with this body and the drafting committee, which is a part of this body. Katie, do you have a comment on that?
I can offer some clarification if the body would like that. I can offer some clarification if the body would like that, or we can postpone it until you get closer to the hiring.
Clarification on what, please?
On what the scrivener their role would be for assisting the drafting committee for that, or I can wait. I'm offering that.
It is, as Vice Chair Haas pointed out, that is still fluid. It's being worked on, but to the extent that you have something that you want to share or advise, we're happy to hear that.
Sure. So generally speaking, the scrivener will not be providing legal advice within the documents themselves. And legal advice does include assessing legal risks, assessing, there can be some changes to language like a shall or a will, or you need an and here instead of an or, but they cannot change the substantive language of the resolution, the proposed amendments, because that would then be wading into legal advice territory. So they will be limited to what I call more so formatting. And it's semantics. I understand you often refer to it as drafting, but revising, we're not really. So it's more so formatting for you these proposals into the correct form.
Thank you. Commissioner Adequate, please.
Based on that clarification, would we be able to say that the scrivener is able to say that the policy document that comes to the drafting committee and the language the drafting committee creates are in alignment? Is that something that they can do? Is say that this as drafted achieves the outcome of what the policy document is stating?
Yeah, they can clarify, but they're not interpreting law for you, but they can ask clarifying questions that I see you have the word will here. I think you meant shall. Is that correct? And you can clarify that, and then they can make those changes. But they can't take it and be like, well, this is now going to do X, Y, and Z at the county, or this is going to, they can't go into like a legal interpretation on it. So that's where I want us to kind of frame it more as like a formatting exercise, that it's correctly formatted and not the legal advice.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Gasquet, I know you've had some experience with that. Is there any insights that you'd like to offer?
I mean, our basic process was proposal to drafting committee, wrote resolutions.
Okay.
And that's basically the process.
Thank you. Okay, so with that context and with the understanding of what the commitment entails, we would like to seek volunteers to serve on the drafting committee. And before we can have it to 7. In the past, we've said if we get more than 7 volunteers, we would do a drawing. We've had some discussions amongst the executive committee. That doesn't feel quite appropriate here. The drawing would be used to determine the membership. So if we do get more than 7 and everyone feels strongly about being on it, then we would probably look to some other form of election to decide who those 7 would be. So with that, are there any volunteers to serve on the drafting committee? Commissioner Landesberg, Commissioner Donnelly, Commissioner Gasquet, Commissioner Garber, Commissioner Sullivan, Commissioner Alaguame. So I count 6. Is that correct? Go back. We'll go back.
Question, Mr. Chair. Didn't we say we would include the sponsor of the amendment in drafting it? And would they be considered part of the committee?
Not in the drafting committee. No.
Okay.
The sponsor of the amendment is the chair of the study committee. But that once it goes to the drafting committee, then there's no guaranteed presence on the drafting committee by members of the committee the study committee. Do you have a question, Commissioner Klein?
Just a clarifying question. Yes, once the drafting committee completes their work on their respective amendment proposals, does the sponsor have a final review opportunity for comment on the draft as it's been brought back to the commission?
I'll need to go back, and the executive committee can go back and double check. I don't have that top of mind. That would make sense, but at the same time, if there really should be no policy evolution in the drafting committee. So all of that work should be happening within the committee, and then the sponsor of the amendment would have very close influence on that process. So theoretically, that would not be necessary, but it would be good practice just to double check. But we can revisit that when we reconvene the work plan subcommittee. Commissioner Sullivan.
So to use the language that the prosecuting attorney used, the subcommittee is only formatting what the committees produce as an approved amendment. So they're not changing anything. They're just filling out the form and putting it in resolution form and correcting language with the help of a scrivener to get the correct form or format. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not going to put words in Katie's mouth, but I think there's multiple ways in which this intent can be described. But I think one way in my mind that's clear is that all of the policy evolution happens within the work plan study committee, or within the study committee rather.
And that's what I was trying to say, is we're just trying to put it in the format without changing the meaning or the policy that's been brought to the drafting committee.
Right. So being on the drafting committee is not an opportunity to change any policy. You are working on language only. Yep. Commissioner LeBrant, please.
So thinking back to the work plan subcommittee discussions, the way it's currently structured, it's heavily incumbent upon these study committees to make sure that what they finally produce is fully ripe, is fully baked, is 98% of the way ready to go, including ballot language in the whole 9 yards, so that PA's office has something with meat on its bones to work with and can move through that hopefully fairly quickly, because we are going to be short on time. And the drafting committee is going to be doing, again, kind of those basic formatting things at the very end of it. But what actually goes to those two groups, to the drafting committee and the PA, needs to be pretty much ready to go.
Well, I would maybe offer one clarification, that the way you described it, using that 98% number, I would say that is a better description of what ends up going to the drafting committee, because where we are right now and the forms that have been submitted to the PA's office, they're not 98%. And so there is a distinction between those 2 points in time. So just to be clear. Commissioner Landsberg, please.
But right now, the drafting committee could actually start writing Kathy's.
Theoretically, yes. Yep. Potentially, yes.
I still have to reply to her email.
Yeah, we don't want the lack of the committee formation to impede any progress. So while the drafting committee isn't quite ready to start convening and doing work, we don't want that to be a holdup in any way. Okay. we go back through and double check the, Commissioner Garber, can you read off the names? And then if as you read off the names, commissioners, if you hear your name, if you could just, again, verbalize to confirm. If you did not hear your name, but you wanted to be on it, you could also speak up, please.
Commissioner Landesberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Confirmed.
Commissioner Gasquet,
Confirmed.
Commissioner Haas. Oh, I thought I saw your, oh, okay. Commissioner Silliman,
Yes.
and then myself, and then Commissioner Adegwame.
Confirmed.
Okay, so we have 6.
Okay, we have 6. So commissioners, is there a motion to form the drafting committee with Commissioners Landesberg, Donnelly, Gasquet, Silliman, Garber, and Adegwame, please?
So moved, Haas.
Is there a second?
Second, Donnelly.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, seeing none, then the drafting committee is formed with those 6 commissioners. Thank you. We'll next moved on to the continuation of our second readings as we amended in the agenda. We will begin with the second reading for Amendment Proposal 2631, Ethics Review Commission to consist of 5 members with Commissioner Hamlick as the sponsor. Jake, do you have the timer ready, please? Commissioner Hamlick, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, please begin.
Okay, this shouldn't take that long, really. So this is 2631 Ethics Review Commission to consist of 5 members. And why require 5 members instead of 3 for the Ethics Commission? Advantages of a larger, more effective decision-making body. Clark County right now has current 3-member structure, creates operational vulnerabilities that impact decision quality and public trust. The problem why 3 members isn't enough. Single absence means there's no quorum. Only 2 votes need to approve. That's the problem. Research shows 5 to 7 members is the ideal size for boards and teams. Represents more geographic areas and stakeholder interest, brings wider range of experiences, skills, and viewpoints, reduces risk of 1 or 2 voices dominating, results of fairer, more inclusive decisions, is what my what I have found on the internet anyway. 3 members, 5 members, there's a little chart there for you. But I want to just finish with saying greater operational resilience, why this matters. Stronger checks and balances, requires 3 votes out of 5 instead of just 2, raising the bar for approval and encouraging compromise. Better decisions, larger group generates richer debate, reduces risk of 1 or 2 voices dominating, and leads to a higher quality outcomes. Easier to maintain a quorum when a member is absent or recused. 1 or 2 absences don't shut down a meeting. So in conclusion, recommending expanding Clark County's ethics commissions from 3 to 5 members is what the amendment would do. Improves decision quality and public trust. Any questions?
Thank you, Commissioner Hamlick. Are there any questions? Commissioner Adegwame, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm curious if you've looked into any of the reasoning behind why it was originally set up as a 3-member body, looked at any of the prior meetings to see if there was any of what you've seen here. Overall, I'm inclined to support something like this. And I would also wonder if it couldn't be folded into a larger ethics package. I know that we have one like that in our proposal list.
That is correct. So Dorothy and I am on that, also that subcommittee. And yes, there has been some issues with the 3. This was decided by the county to have the 3 and not make it larger. I just think 5 is a better number all around. And yeah, this would fit in the same category and it could be at some point. Right now, I just want to make sure that this part does get passed, but I would work with Dorothy if we can come up. I just want to make sure that committee is going where it's supposed to go.
Commissioner Klein, please.
Thank you, Chair. I like the idea of expanding to 5, and I support that. I have a question relative to the Ethics Committee itself, and that is there existing or is there a possibility of establishing language that says that the Ethics Committee cannot initiate an investigation, but rather that they can only respond to a complaint that is referred to them? Have you given some thought to that, or can you address
Well,
that
I
question?
have, because that is also in Dorothy's ethics amendment. So, and we're working on that. So that is in that one. And this one, this is also in hers too. I just had some questions on cost of what she is proposing. There's some things that we're talking about and the language. So.
May I ask a second question, Chair?
Please.
So you have 2 ethics-related amendments, and you are in conversation about potentially melding them together. And so, all right, so then yours does not concern what I'm addressing. So then when Commissioner Gasquez is up, then I will address that question regarding the ethics complaints. Thank you.
Commissioner Holmgren, please.
Given how similar or how this overlaps with Commissioner Gasquez, I wonder if I have one as a clarifying question. Is the hope that if Commissioner Gasquez does not gain the support of this body, that then this would be seen as like a backup proposal for the 2026 ballot? Or is it that if that one does get on the ballot, that this might be deferred to 2027 in case that one doesn't pass on the 2026 ballot?
I think this is really important to get done. So either way, I'm okay with. If I put it together and it does pass, that's wonderful. And we come up with a really good amendment for ethics. That's fantastic. But if it does not, I don't have a problem deferring it till next year, because I do think going 3 to 5 is the right move for that department.
Just want to add one clarification. So Commissioner Gasquez's proposed amendment has already been heard and had a second reading. So the reference to when it comes up, I just want to clarify, it has already come up. Commissioner Lansbury, please.
And so to respond a little bit to what Commissioner Klein said, Commissioner Gasquez's amendment does go way farther into allowing some investigation into proactive investigations. That's
May I?
Commissioner Klein, please.
My concern is that the Ethics Committee should not initiate investigations when there is no complaint to be investigated.
So that
That's my
topic
comment.
deals with another amendment. So the amendment that's before us right now just simply deals with the membership quantity. Commissioners, are there any other questions? Commissioner Alagame, please.
Sorry, Chair, this is more of a technical question. I just want to understand if this amendment were to not pass second reading, it could still be deferred. Is that a choice the sponsor can make, or would it need to pass second reading in order to still be deferred to 2027?
So the way our work plan currently is prepared is that at any time, an amendment that's still alive in our process can be voluntarily deferred by the sponsor. If it passes a second reading, then the opportunity to defer still exists at any point. But a sponsor, if the amendment fails, a sponsor can still bring it back next year and reintroduce it. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Commissioners, are there any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll make a comment of my own. I think this is a good amendment. I'm in support of it. I think 5 rather than 3 makes sense. I've commented earlier that the Ethics Commission carries a lot of weight. Their decisions matter, and that 5 makes sense to me. Okay, seeing no other comments or questions, commissioners, we'll take this to a vote. Jake, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Araguame,
Aye.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Aye.
Commissioner LeBrant,
Aye.
Chair Erickson,
Aye.
Commissioner Garber,
Abstain.
Commissioner Hamlet,
Aye.
Commissioner Chrisley,
Aye.
Commissioner Landisberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Jay,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Gasquet,
Abstain.
Commissioner Holmgren,
Abstain.
Commissioner Benton,
Aye.
Commissioner Haas,
Abstain.
Commissioner Silliman.
Aye.
11 aye, 4 abstain.
Okay, the amendment does qualify for committee study, and I will ask Katie just to confirm 11 ayes, 4 abstentions, no negative votes. That, back to our earlier discussion, 4 abstentions does not, it's not a unanimous vote. Is that correct?
That is how I see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioners will next seek to confirm the membership of the committee. The co-sponsors are listed as Commissioners Erickson and Commissioner Haas. Start with Commissioner Haas. Commissioner Haas, are you interested in being on the committee?
No.
Okay, I am interested, but would defer if there are others who would like to be on it. So I will say yes, contingent upon whether or not there's other interest, so that Commissioner Hamlick isn't working on this by herself. Commissioners, are there any other interest? Commissioner Klein? Okay. Commissioner Landisberg, you're volunteering to be on the committee? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any others? Okay, that being the case, then I will respectfully not participate in the committee. So the membership will be comprised of Commissioner Hamlick as the chair, with committee members, including Commissioner Landisberg and Commissioner Klein. Thank you. We'll next move on to a second reading for Amendment Proposal 2609, prohibiting county government from interfering with initiatives and charter amendments, with Commissioner Jay as the sponsor. Commissioner Jay, you ready?
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Okay,
Chair.
please begin.
All right, let's dive in to Amendment Proposal 26-09, prohibiting county government from interfering with initiatives. I'd like to begin by thanking my co-sponsors as well as the Commission for considering this proposal. And jump on the next slide. So the problem I address is that if the Charter Review Commission especially lowers the threshold for citizen-led initiatives, referenda, and charter amendments, then I believe that Clark County must take a step to safeguard public trust. So examples from other local jurisdictions show that councils do weigh in on these measures, and doing so can erode the confidence in the process. A charter amendment prohibiting county interference with initiatives and charter amendments would help preserve that public trust. So first, the real problem, the real example of it, that local jurisdictions have the ability to support or oppose initiatives exemplified by Vancouver's support for Proposition 5, which for full transparency, I happen to personally support, but definitely do think it is a bit redundant for a jurisdiction to both pass the resolution and put it on the ballot, and then pass a resolution in support of it. So, which I think the effort to put it on the ballot to begin with already implies their support. Then a perceived problem from that same local jurisdiction, attempts to weigh in or impede initiatives have undermined public trust in local government. So for the record, I'm not a big fan of the Complete Streets initiative for myself. I oppose this initiative as I thought it was a bit too unwieldy for transportation issues to be a matter of direct democracy. But nevertheless, I believe that the city's response to it did erode a lot of public trust. So initiatives are intended as a workaround for the government in question. So to have the government in question, the government body in question, weigh in as an arbiter does undermine that process. Moving on to the next slide. So here's the proposed language. I'll briefly read it. So limits county government involvement in the citizen initiative and charter amendment process within Clark County, Washington. The amendment would prohibit the county council or other county officials from weighing from taking actions that block, delay, or otherwise interfere with placing initiatives on or charter amendments on the ballot, bar the use of county resources to support or oppose such measures, and prevent the council from delaying implementation of voter-approved initiatives or charter amendments. This amendment would not prohibit the county council from proposing charter amendments as specified in section 9.6 of the county charter. I won't read this one. We can skip over, but you can read it at your own pleasure. Cool. So existing state law. So I've copied the relevant RCW 42.17A.555. Use of public office or agency facilities and campaigns, prohibitions, exceptions, and I've highlighted the most relevant sections. So in summary, local governments in Washington can provide one jurisdiction-wide, fair, factual explanation on ballot measures, answer questions and speak at forums with neutral information, encourage people to vote in general, but not for a side, and report factual actions, i.e. council passed the resolutions. But local governments in Washington cannot use time or public resource to campaign, distribute pro-con materials, send emails, newsletters, or social posts advocating for position, conduct polls or surveys designed to influence, support, or oppose measures and target specific groups or sway election outcomes. But they can vote to support a initiative. So next slide, please. So I wanted to also address some of the historical reasonings for the initiative process as well. So why do we even have initiatives, which is their check on representative government? Initiatives gives the people a direct corrective mechanism for when the elected officials don't act. It is rooted in our notion of public sovereignty. As in a republic, all political power ultimately resides with the people. It encourages civic participation by giving citizens a sense of ownership over outcomes, and its roots are derived from the progressive era reforms of the early 20th century against corruption as a means to bypass entrenched power and restore public control over the government. But I would argue that all of these checks are undermined by the lax provisions, I think, that are outlined in state law, as the check weakens when the checked controls the outcome. We're on the next slide. So a brief step-by-step process for how it works. So first things first, signatures are gathered and the petition is filed with the auditor. Auditor reviews and certifies to ensure sufficient signatures and legal compliance. Only then do the proposed amendments restrictions kick in and the council is unable to impede or block the measure. Council and county can't use public funds or resources to advocate for or against the initiative or legally challenge it. Councilors retain their individual rights to express opinions. Should the measure be challenged in court, the measure can still intervene, or the courts can still intervene with the measure if the measure is unconstitutional or illegal. If, say, a charter amendment was made to declare Clark County as an independent country, for example. Courts can issue injunctions, block the measure, or declare it legally invalid still, both before or after an election. But then the election, and if approved by voters, the council must enact into county law and cannot delay or refuse implementation. Let's move on. What is allowed? Official endorsements or opposition are prohibited, but councilors can still retain their personal opinions as acting private citizens. They can release their press releases as politicians. The county is forbidden from using county resources to advocate, but neutral information, including auditor-provided summaries, are still allowed. The county can host or sponsor events for the purpose of electioneering, but they can do routine government communications on procedural updates. Benefits of the proposed amendment. So it protects voter autonomy by ensuring voters make decisions based on merit and non-official endorsement. It preserves official neutrality and maintains trust in county government as an impartial arbiter. It supports transparency by preventing voter confusion on official policy or personal opinion. It reduces conflict of interest by limiting potential opportunities of abuse and political favoritism. It provides public trust by demonstrating that Clark County values fair elections and citizen-led democracy, and therefore will encourage more people to engage with the process. It enhances separation of powers by preventing the council from undermining the will of the people, but also prevents the council from undermining the work of our own Charter Review Commission, because they wouldn't be able to make statements on that, which protects the balance of powers implied by the creation of this very body. It aligns with and enhances state laws. And finally, very important, is that it would have no added legal burden. But because let's be real here, as exemplified by the Save Vancouver Streets initiatives, Vancouver City Council's rejection of that did not stop the lawsuit to begin with, but they did still undermine the process and the public trust in the council by doing so. So if you can organize a signature gathering campaign, you can usually organize and fundraise a lawsuit as well. These are similar skill sets. I've seen the same people do the same thing many times in my experience in politics. But if anything, this proposal would reduce the risk of lawsuits by preventing the county from undertaking their own legal challenges on the initiative and using public funds for that political purpose. Thank you very much. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Jay. Commissioner Lagome, please.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions. The examples that we saw in the presentation are all from other jurisdictions and not from Clark County. I was hoping that you could explain why the City of Vancouver's resolution should have any bearing on the conversation to modify a different municipality's charter. Hoping that you've maybe done the research and seen if there are any resolutions that were passed by the County Council at the time of the other Charter Review Commission that occurred, or if you've seen this in other municipalities that had Charter Review Commissions and if there's interference there. And then also last week, you specifically asked Chair Marshall, who was here in her official capacity, if she had any recommendations for charter amendments. So the lack of consistency is concerning, I think, and I'm inclined to vote no, but I just wanted to get that clarification on the record if I could.
Nothing in my amendment would prevent politicians from speaking in a press conference or anything related. Chair Sue Marshall is more than able in her position to espouse these things, but not the county council itself voting on it. I chose those two examples because they illustrated state law, and the same state law applies to Vancouver as it does to Clark County. And so those are two examples that just happened last year that I thought both provided a perceived challenge as well as a potentially real challenge. Real challenge being they do weigh in, and perceived as in how do the people who organize Save Vancouver Streets and others who are opposed to Save Complete Streets view that. So that was just an example to illustrate what state law and how it applies to here. And why I might not talk about Clark County is simply because Clark County doesn't have the same volume of initiatives because our threshold is too high. It takes too short of a window. And so if we do lower that threshold and we do widen that window, and it is possible actually to get a charter amendment on the ballot by citizen initiative or citizen initiative referendum, then this could become a problem. And so that's a problem I see in Clark County or Vancouver, and I don't want to see it, if we can avoid it, in Clark County.
Commissioner Landsberg, please.
When I read the proposed amendment ballot language, it's confusing because the council can propose their own charter amendments. And so as this reads, it sounds like they can't do their own charter amendments. And also, to piggyback on what some others have said, you know, if Councilor Will Fuentes wants to write an op-ed piece about X, Y, or Z, it's unclear the way you say it. It sounds like they can't, even though you said in your explanation in the meeting that they could.
You're referring to the explanatory document or the language? Because nothing in this document, we can't prohibit Councilor Will Fuentes' First Amendment right. He has a right to write a public, his own op-ed. It's totally allowed. Sorry, what was the first part of the question?
That was the first, that was the second part of my question. But the way the proposed amendment ballot language reads, it sounds like the county council can't propose its own charter amendments, but it can.
Yes, this does nothing to prevent the county from proposing their own amendments. They still can. The only thing that it would prevent from the county from doing, they could propose the amendment, but then there's a separate vote for whether they support the amendment. That's what I'm taking away. They can still propose amendments as specified in the charter in 9.6, if I'm not mistaken, of where that is. This does nothing for that, but it does prevent them from the subsequent vote of supporting or opposing amendments. That's what I'm trying to cut. And they're two separate votes. You can vote, and they are usually organized in that way. Why that is so, I don't know, and I'm trying to change that. So I'm trying to make only one vote, because then if they do vote to put a ballot on the amendment, that's implied support, and people can assume that the county council supports it because a majority of them voted for it.
Well, it's actually a super majority vote.
Let's try to use our time to let some others speak. Commissioner Garber, and then we'll go to Commissioner Chrisley, please.
So thank you for that presentation. You mentioned in RCW 4217A that government resources cannot be used to propose or oppose a measure. So That law is already out there. You also stated that on your summary that legislative bodies can formally take a position in public meetings. That RCW states that. So to me, I believe that your amendment would be contrary to state law. It already allows them to do that, yet you're taking that legal ability for them. I believe a good charter amendment or initiative should be able to withstand discussion and scrutiny by the council. And I will be opposed to this.
It does not conflict with state law, given that it's more conservative than state law. It just takes one additional thing from state law. It complements with state law. It only takes away from that support vote.
Commissioner Chrisley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I understand the intent behind this, but it's pretty clear this is already addressed in state law. So it gets, but just adding these extreme additional restrictions, and for that reason, I'll be opposed to this.
Extreme is a word choice.
Are there any other questions or comments? Commissioner LeBrant, please.
And this might be a question for committee work, but a couple of folks have raised the state law. I agree that public bodies shouldn't be using public resources for electioneering. Strongly feel that way. That said, I'm still not totally clear from your presentation what this does that isn't addressed by the state law. And so I probably will vote in opposition, but should it move forward, I would love to see more clarity around that. So thanks.
Sure. Love to work with you on the subcommittee or committee if it passes.
Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, we'll move to a vote. Jake, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Adeguame.
No.
Commissioner Donnelly.
Yes.
Commissioner LeBrant.
No.
Chair Erickson.
Abstain.
Commissioner Garber.
No.
Commissioner Hamlet.
Abstain.
Commissioner Chrisley.
No.
Commissioner Landesberg.
No.
Commissioner Jay.
Aye.
Commissioner Klein.
Aye.
Commissioner Gasquet.
No.
Commissioner Holmgren.
No.
Commissioner Benton.
Aye.
Vice Chair Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Silliman.
Yes.
6 aye. 7 nay, 2 abstain. I can do math.
Thank you. So the amendment does not advance to committee study. Commissioners, we have 2 other second readings to pursue. I'm going to suggest that we do one more and then we can take our final break. Next up will be Amendment Proposal 2613, Legislative Branch Employees. Commissioner Silliman as the sponsor. Commissioner Silliman, are you ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please begin, please.
All right. This proposed amendment would change Article 2 of the Clark County Charter, make it clearer that the county council or the legislative branch is responsible for the employment and supervision of personnel required to function and perform the duties of the legislative branch. I hate violating the first rule of PowerPoint and that you don't read the PowerPoint, but that's what we're going to do. Article 1 of the county charter makes it clear that there is to be a separate executive branch and a legislative branch of county government. If adopted, this amendment would equip the legislative branch with the employees required to fulfill this requirement of separation in Article 1 and allow it to perform its policy and legislative functions in Article 2. Article 1, powers of the county, says separation of powers and cooperative branches. It says there shall be the legislative and executive powers shall be separated into 2 branches of government. Each branch is to dutifully fulfill its responsibilities and shall not extend its authority into the other branch as defined in this charter. Council members shall not interfere in the administration of the executive branch. They shall not issue orders to or direct either publicly or privately any officer, agent, employee, contractor, or vendor subject to the direction and supervision of the county manager or other elected officials. In 2.6, it continues, nothing contained herein shall prohibit the council member from referring a citizen complaint or submitting a request for information to the county manager or the other elected official, submitting a request to the county manager to work with a department head to investigate a constituent issue, or requesting information or advice pertinent to the legislative deliberations and actions of the council from any officer, agent, employee, contractor, vendor, subject to the direction and supervision of the county manager or other elected official. I know that's kind of redundant. The executive branch shall be composed of the offices of the county manager, assessor, auditor, clerk, prosecuting attorney, sheriff, and treasurer. The powers and duties of the executive branch are to supervise all administrative departments established by this charter or created by the council. The administrative department shall consist of the departments and agencies of the executive branch that are not headed by executive elected officials. Article 3, the executive branch continued. The executive branch is extending its authority into the legislative branch when it is the sole provider of staff and controls the information presented to the county council. And these are statements of mine, obviously. The executive branch is extending its authority into the legislative branch when it is directly supervising employees required for the legislative branch to function. No other Washington county allows this. And here are examples from other charter counties. And I won't read them all, but I'll read the highlighted portion from Clallam County. The commissioners may appoint staff as they deem necessary to assist them in the performance of their duties. Even King County, the council shall be responsible for its own organization and for the employment and supervision of those employees whom it deems necessary to assist it or individual council members in the exercise of their legislative powers, and shall appoint a clerk to maintain its records. Snohomish County, the council shall be responsible for its own organization, the rules of conduct of its business, and for the employment and supervision of such persons as it deems necessary to assist it in the performance of its duties. Even Pierce County says they are to employ personnel required to advise the council. Whatcom County, again, it shall be responsible for its own organization, the rules of conduct of its business, and for the employment and supervision of such persons it deems necessary to assist it in the performance of its duties. Just to compare a couple staff ratios, let me give you some context. Pierce County has 7 county counselors. They have a staff of 24, so that's a staff to counselor ratio of 3.4. Snohomish County has 5 counselors, a staff of 19 with a ratio of 3.8 staff to counselor ratio. Before the charter was created, we had 3 commissioners and a staff of 8 in the county counselor's office, which was a ratio of 1.6. Now we currently have 5 council members and 0 staff reporting to the county counselor, so the ratio is 0. But if we had moved over the existing staff at the time of the charter's adoption to the 5-member council, we would still have a very low staff ratio of 1.2 staff members for council ratios. So we wouldn't be out of line monetary wise. I would point out that Snohomish and Pierce County are both twice our size geographically and population wise. So it's understandably why they would have more staff. King County is so way off the charts that there's no point in including them. And there are a couple of smaller counties that don't compare well so I didn't include them. This proposal isn't to hire any new staff. It is proposing that the staff currently utilized to directly support the legislative branch function should report to the legislative branch as determined by the council. This provides for the true division of the legislative and executive branches of government as called out in the charter, and there is no additional cost to taxpayers. The proposed amendment simply uses language contained in the other charters in Washington It says the council shall be responsible for the employment and supervision of those employees whom it deems necessary to assist it in the exercise of their legislative powers, and shall appoint a clerk to maintain its records. That's where I'm at now. Now, why is this really important? Let me bring up an analogy. Does anybody know where the term devil's advocate came from? So in Rome, when the church had submissions, just to give you an example, when they had submissions for sainthood, they had a board that would convene and approve whether these people should be confirmed by the church as saints or not. They used to have a position called the devil's advocate. So you'd have a bunch of board members on there and they would come up with all the reasons why the person should be approved. You'd have a devil's advocate who would dig up the dirt and say, what are the reasons they shouldn't be approved? They did away with the devil's advocate position, and what happened was there was nobody there to play devil's advocate or give a reason not to approve people, and the number of people that got approved skyrocketed because there was nobody there to take a contrary view. So my belief is this is what has happened in Clark County, because the only people that give opinions are from the executive branch, which are supporting whatever the executive branch is proposing the councilors adopt. If they don't have somebody in their employment that is willing to look into it and say, what's the dirt? Is there a reason why we shouldn't do this? Then of course they are going to be stuck with adopting more of these proposed amendments because they're not given a reason not to. So that's why I think it's important that they have resources to get the other side of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. The charter requires separation of the legislative and executive branches of government. The checks and balances that are supposed to happen cannot really occur if there is no real separation. This amendment simply removes the charter ambiguity about legislative branch employees, allowing the legislative branch to fully function as an independent branch of Clark County and at no cost to taxpayers. And I'll just conclude by saying I really do believe in the separation of powers. I believe the county manager should be left alone to run the county, but I also believe that the council should be enabled to truly produce policy and pass laws for the administrative branch to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Silman. Commissioner Alarguame, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Silman, for the presentation. A couple of questions. It sounds like from your proposal that the staff that were previously detailed to the county commissioners are still detailed to the county council. So 0 seems a little bit misleading to say there. My big question really is the HR concerns. You know, who is someone who reports to the county council text if they're running late? What happens if they need sick time? Who's coordinating the vacation schedules, right? There are a lot of HR and personnel management concerns that I have when you're talking about a body of 5 people having to have people report to them. Who of their 5 bosses is going to handle scheduling when they can have time off versus the other people having time off? And then lastly, I think you might have copied from some of the other charters that we read, but it says that they will appoint a clerk as well. And so it seems like this proposal as currently written does 2 different things at the same time, which is creating this appointed clerk position as well as having the legislative branch employees. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Just to clarify a couple of points for you, the clerk language is kind of redundant. We already have a clerk of the board in the county council's office. As far as managing the employees on a day-to-day, they currently report to the county manager, and I seriously doubt they spent a lot of time directly supervising them. Last time I checked, they had an office manager in the Board of County Councilors office to manage the clerks in there. I think they know what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's pretty routine, and it's not a big deal who they report to. At the time of the charter's adoption, there were 3 additional employees that worked for the county councilors, and they were policy analysts or research assistants to help the county council dig into policy, research laws, get other background that wasn't being supplied by the administrative branch. So I think that's what's important.
Commissioner Chrisley, please.
Sure. Thank you for your presentation. I have to piggyback on Commissioner Alarguame just a little bit, given that the county manager works for the county council, right? And so the county council has all abilities to make policy and ordinance, have the ability to reject any of those items that come from staff or accept those items from staff. So it's not really changing anything in the aspects of it's just going to make things more confusing, I think, because as he said, they won't know who to answer to, who's their boss. They got 5 different bosses, and our county councilors are part-time. So they don't have time to manage the daily lives of the staff members that are up there. And since the county manager ultimately answers to the county council, it just seems like this is a amendment that could probably do without.
Well, as somebody that worked in the county councilor's office as a research assistant for 5 county councilors, it wasn't really all that confusing.
Commissioner Garber, please.
So when Chair Marshall was here, that question was asked about her, and she said she didn't think it was a problem. And the employees, the council staff that I have talked with, they don't think it's a problem either. They already do answer to the council, and I do think it would be confusing. So I'm just really trying to understand, if nobody really cares how it is right now, the staff and the council, what problem are we fixing?
Well, if you are a counselor and you 100% agree with the agenda of staff, then you probably don't have a problem and they are 100% cooperative with you. But if you elect somebody that wants to push back a little bit or wants to change or wants to question what they're being presented, I don't think you're going to get the answers that would conflict with what the county manager or staff are presenting to the council. You're not going to get those answers clearly and cooperatively from staff. And that's why you need independent staff that you can rely on that report to you, so there is no conflict of interest for those employees. If they report to the county manager, they can't sabotage the county manager's legislative agenda by presenting information to the councilors that would cause them not to agree with that. And I've had to experience that firsthand. So,
Commissioner Benton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Silliman. I want to speak in support of this. Any normal legislative body has support staff that reports to those individual people. If a member of this commission were elected to our state legislature, you'd have a legislative aide and other support staff that would support you and report to you. Every other county in the state has these staff that report to the counselors themselves. So I think that this is not only important, I think it's crucial, and it's one of the most important amendments that we're going to see this year. So I'd strongly urge a yes vote.
Commissioner Donnelly, then Commissioner Landesberg.
Yes, a question about how this would actually work. Should it theoretically, hypothetically pass? How would it be decided which employees would then be transferred to report to council members and which would remain to report to the county manager? How would it practically take place?
well, I think initially you have 4 or 5 office staff that are directly responsible for setting up meetings, preparing agendas, preparing materials for the counselors, preparing websites, things like that. Those people are already doing the job for the legislative branch, and that's their primary task. Those people are just going to move over. And if the staff, if the council wants to have their own policy analysts or research assistants like they did before, those are jobs that other staff members in the county are probably doing in different departments. They can consolidate that as they see it's necessary to perform that function.
Final quick question from Commissioner Landesberg, please.
I just want to speak in favor of this amendment. Having been in a position similar to a Clark County counselor when I was an administrative law judge, it was extremely frustrating never having anyone that specifically worked for me. I was just given staff, this one, that one, whatever, and there was no one I could count on. And so I will support your amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. We'll move to a vote. Jake, could you please call the roll for Amendment 2613, Legislative Branch Employees?
Commissioner Araguame.
No.
Commissioner Donnelly.
Yes.
Commissioner LeBrant.
No.
Chair Erickson.
Aye.
Commissioner Garber.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamlick.
Aye.
Commissioner Chrisley.
No.
Commissioner Landesberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Jay.
Aye.
Commissioner Klein.
Aye.
Commissioner Gasquet,
Aye.
Commissioner Holmgren,
Aye.
Commissioner Benton,
Aye.
Vice Chair Haas,
Aye.
Commissioner Silliman.
Yes.
12 aye, 3 nay.
Okay, the amendment does advance into study committee. Commissioner Silliman will be the committee chair. We'll next seek to confirm the membership of the committee, starting with the co-sponsors. Commissioner Klein, are you interested in serving on the committee?
Aye.
Commissioner Benton,
Yes.
Commissioner Jay.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have room for some additional members on the committee. Is there any interest? Okay.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry if I missed you again. So Commissioner Holmgren.
Yes, I'd be interested if you'd have me.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, I'd like to suggest we take our final break and then we'll come back for our final second reading. Is there a motion to take a 5-minute break?
So moved, Landisberg.
Second, Liz Klein.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we will come back at 7:18. Commissioners, welcome back. If you could please find your seats. We have one more second reading for tonight's meeting. We'll next hear a presentation on Amendment Proposal 2614, Performance Audits, with Commissioner Silliman as the sponsor. Commissioner Silliman, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Please begin.
Just want to let you know that it's my daughter's birthday, so I want to be home as soon as possible, but I'll stay here and answer all your questions before I jet out of here. But this proposal is similar to the last one in that it gives a little bit more responsibility and ability for the legislative branch to perform its function. So this proposed amendment would change Article 2 of the Clark County Charter to make it clear that the county council or legislative branch may conduct or cause to be conducted a performance audit of county finances or programs to review the effectiveness and efficiency of programs and operations of the county. There is no provision in the charter for performance audits. If adopted, this amendment would, I should specify, by the council. This would allow the county council to establish a performance auditing process for the purpose of reviewing the integrity of the county's financial system, the accuracy of financial record keeping, compliance with applicable laws, and or efficiency of county operations. So again, I'll skim over some of these because we talked about separation of powers between the administrative and legislative branch in the previous one. But we'll get to the Snohomish County Charter because they have the power to do this. It says the county council may conduct or cause to be conducted audits of the financial operations of the county government or any portion thereof. The county council may conduct or cause to be conducted periodic performance and program audits to review the effectiveness and efficiency of the programs and operations of the county. Annual audits shall continue to be performed by the state in accordance with general law. You'll see that Pierce County has similar language allowing them to employ independent and outside competent professional personnel to conduct audits. Whatcom County, the county council may conduct audit or cause to be conducted audits of financial operations of the county. The proposed amendment for Clark County says the county council may conduct or cause to be conducted audits of financial operations of the county or any portion thereof. The council may conduct or cause to be conducted periodic performance and program audits to review the effectiveness and efficiency of the programs and operations of the county. Annual audits shall continue to be performed by the state in accordance with general law. The performance audits will be conducted with the goal of transparency. I think that's supposed to be efficiency and responsible stewarding of public resources. It continues, the county council shall establish by ordinance within the legislative branch an independent county performance auditing process for the purpose of reviewing, evaluating, and reporting on the integrity of the county's financial management system, the accuracy of financial record keeping, compliance with applicable laws, policies, guidelines, procedures, and the efficiency and effectiveness of operations and programs. Performance auditing shall be conducted via open, competitive, and transparent service contracts. Selected contractors shall have an appropriate professional credentials, legal authority for accessing to records, adequate funding, and shall use generally accepted accounting auditing standards. Selected contractors shall adhere to generally accepted government auditing standards promulgated by the United States government accountability offices in conducting their work and shall be considered independent as defined by those standards. Performance audits shall be conducted on an as-needed basis. So I want to clarify, these audits do not replace audits currently required by state law. We've heard about from the Financial Services Department that they conduct audits. The state auditor comes down and conducts audits. This has nothing to do with those. They will continue to be done. This is not a replacement for those. These audits do not transfer authority to do audits currently done by the auditor or the Financial Services Department. This proposed authority would give the county council the ability to independently conduct and define the scope of an audit to assist with their legislative or policy-making function. Time for another analogy. In my work experience, working for a telephone company, I found that they do a lot of jobs that they spend a lot more money than they need to on. And the problem with their process is they have an auditing process too, but they audit, okay, did this employee perform the job? Did he get the work out according to the template? Did the work flow through the process? Did all the units get paid? Did they get approved by the right person? And did the job get closed out and record keeping updated? The problem with that is that they didn't ask one critical question. Should they have done the job that way to begin with? So I'm not going to fault our people in the Financial Services Department. They are tracking jobs and saying, are we following all the guidelines for how we spend money, how we account for money? Are they going to the right programs? Are they being accounted for correctly? But I believe it's the county council's job, along with their policymaking ability, to judge, is that the right way to spend money? And in order to audit that, you need to ask slightly different questions. So my intent is that we give them the ability to audit programs and say, let's ask a slightly different question. What are the results of this action we're taking, and could we do it a different way? So the charter requires separation of the legislative and executive branches of government. These checks and balances don't really occur if there's no ability for the legislative branch to audit the performance of the administrative branch. This amendment provides clarity and the ability of the county council to conduct audits if it finds it necessary to perform its legislative and policymaking role. They are optional, but a tool that every other charter county has granted to their county council. Whatcom County proposed a similar amendment to this in 2025, and it passed with 85% of the public supporting it. I think it's an important tool, and I think the public supported that in Whatcom. I think it's a good reason for us to adopt this charter amendment. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Garber, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. So I do have a question. You mentioned that this independent group would have the legal authority to access records. So what about confidential records? Are you wanting them to be able to access something that maybe they are not able to get to, let's say, for instance, elections databases? I just want to be clear on that. And then who determines this as needed, and how do they determine it?
Again, the way I've written it is this is a power for the county council to initiate an audit, but this amendment requires them to follow all the existing guidelines for outside auditors to come in. It would be no different than if the county manager hired a contractor that was an auditor to come in and evaluate something. It's just giving the authority to the county council to do that. So when the person that hires the auditor is who the auditor is going to attempt to please. If that's the county manager, they have different objectives to please the county manager than they would for a county council because they're going to be given different specifications, I believe. Hope that answers your question.
Commissioner Landsberg, and then we'll go to Commissioner Chrisley.
Okay, so we currently have an auditor's office that does performance audits and other types of audits. Have you actually asked them whether or not county council could request a specific audit to analyze a issue or whatever?
There is no doubt that they can request that. It's in the county charter that the county council can request information from staff or from the county manager. There's no requirement in the charter for them to provide that information. This would give them the legal authority to demand that that be done or demand that information.
And have you done any financial, what it would cost?
No, we can definitely do that if you agree with the principle. So,
Commissioner Chrisley, please.
Thanks. I support this in principle. I do. But my question is, it says here, the county council shall establish by ordinance. I'll just stop there. Why does this need to be embedded in the charter when the council can just make it so by ordinance and accomplish the same thing without it being an amendment on the ballot?
The intent is, not, and this is copied from another county charter, so it's the exact language that other charters use, or at least a charter does. I think the intention here is that the details about how to contract and implement this would be implemented by creating an ordinance, not encumbering the charter with the language beyond what's already specified here. So this gives the general light guidelines, but they would establish by ordinance how the county council is going to do that, just like they pass other laws for other county processes to dictate whether the county manager or other staff, how they're going to do details.
Commissioner Holmgren.
Sir.
Yep. Thank you. Commissioner Holmgren, then we'll go to Commissioner LeBrant, please.
So my question is there anything currently in the charter that prevents the council from sending out a request or budgeting for an outside audit for certain programs like this kind of suggests would be happening?
I don't believe they have any authority to contract with outsiders for an audit of any kind based on the way the charters, I read the charter, or what the charter said. The charter literally says, you know, they can submit requests to the county manager or the executive branch for information. That's the limitation that I read there. They have no authority like other county charters specifically call out that they have the authority to conduct or cause to be conduct audits.
Commissioner LeBrant, please.
Just a question around the audits or financial operations of the county government or any portion thereof. I'd love to see some clarity around which departments so that we don't have the county council going and trying to audit, for example, the sheriff if that's outside their purview, that responsibility would still roll up to the elected official in charge of that branch or specifically called out.
All the other county charters, as I gave examples in here, contain the general language. And I don't know that since the county council is also responsible for approving their budget of each of these executive departments, I think it's incumbent on them to be able to examine and check and verify what they're approving as far as budgeting. So by giving them the ability to audit that, you're giving them the ability to hold accountable and say, how are they actually spending the money and what are the details if they're not getting that information through other audits that the county already provides.
Commissioner Hamblick, please.
So I am always for a good audit, saying that. But I would like to know a little bit more information because I do believe that the county council just did an audit on our county manager. Now, how did that process work and how did they do that? I'm not sure. I'd like to see more detail on that. I do think it's important that they have that ability to do so. And I don't know how they did this one. And I think it's within the last 6 months that they did this.
Well, and I think that's a good example. The county council specifically has the right to do an audit on the county manager's performance because they hire the county manager and are directly responsible for that. But what if they want to see how the public works department is working a little bit more clearly? Shouldn't they have the ability to audit that, bring it back, everybody gets the same information, and then they question the county manager and say, based on this, how can we improve a process? How can we improve how we're spending money in a particular way?
Commissioner Benton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to speak in favor of this one as I have a background in public accounting. I was an auditor, and people don't realize that auditing is more than just financial. You can audit processes, controls, workflows, things like that. So I think it's important that the county council have that authority or that ability to be able to go in, like Commissioner Silliman said, to another department and say, hey, maybe it's not financial. Maybe the workflow here is off and we can be doing something more efficiently and spending taxpayer money better, something along those lines. So I would strongly urge a yes vote on this.
Commissioner Jay, do you have your hand up?
Yes, just a brief comment. I also like to speak in favor of this amendment. I think the freeholders in their construction of the checks and balances did a great disservice in weakening the county council. Sorry, 14 out of 15 of the freeholders did a great disservice in their original proposal of the charter. And so anything that strengthens the council vis-a-vis the other branches, as opposed to with the people, which I'm more in favor of restricting, but with the other branches is a good thing. And so there is a big difference between a request and an actual power. And so I look forward to supporting this. Thank you for proposing.
If I could expand on that thought a little bit, when you have the power to demand information, it also produces cooperation. Just like if you've seen a police encounter where somebody says, if you really want me to, I can go get a warrant, or you can just let me, look. So we need to give the county council authority to gather information if we truly want them to be empowered to gather the correct information that they want. And again, I believe this promotes the idea of separation of powers. Let's have an administrative branch that is responsible for implementing, but let's also have a branch that is capable of producing policy on their own. And that requires information. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Silliman. We'll move to a vote. Jake, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Adeguame.
No.
Commissioner Donnelly.
Aye.
Commissioner LeBrant.
No.
Chair Erickson.
Aye.
Commissioner Garber.
No.
Commissioner Hamlick.
Aye.
Commissioner Chrisley.
Yes.
Commissioner Landisberg.
Nay.
Commissioner Jay.
Aye.
Commissioner Klein.
Aye.
Commissioner Gasquet.
Aye.
Commissioner Holmgren.
Nay.
Commissioner Benton.
Aye.
Vice Chair Haas.
Yes.
Commissioner Silliman.
Yes.
10 aye, 5 nay.
Thank you. The amendment does advance to qualify for a committee study with Commissioner Silliman as the committee chair. We'll next seek to confirm the membership of the committee, starting with the co-sponsors. Commissioner Klein, are you interested in serving on the committee?
Confirmed.
Commissioner Benton?
Yes.
Commissioner Jay? Okay, we have room for 3 others potentially. Are there any other commissioners interested in serving on this committee? Commissioner Gasquet? Thank you. Any others? Okay, thank you. Commissioners, that ends our new business agenda. Looking ahead to our next meeting, we have a full slate of second readings. Currently, this is what is planned. We will hear presentations on 2637 County Council Investigative Authority, 2638 Prohibit Light Rail in Clark County, 2633 Participatory Budgeting Process Program, 2635 Public Defense Adequacy and Transparency, 2639 Prohibit Tolling in Clark County, 2640 Amending the Initiative, Mini Initiative, and Referendum Process, and 2624 Require Annual Report Publication by the County Manager. With that, we will move on to our final agenda item, which is good to the order. And Commissioner Garber, do you have something, please?
I do. I just wanted to remind all of the commissioners that your F1 report is due by April 15th.
Thank you. Commissioner Alarcon, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to announce to the commission, I notified the executive committee already, but I will be absent for our May 20th meeting. And so just wanted to notify everyone in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other items for the good of the order? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn. Haas.
Second, Klein.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, commissioners.
Well, forgive me for running off, but it's my daughter's birthday, so I'm going to run.
How old is she?
Scary. 15?
You should know that.
See, that was the